Dub and I are back. Crazy weekend in March Madness. We got to go to the South region where big shout out to James Madison on upset in Wisconsin. I was actually at the game. I went to see Dub and I's boys, the Duke Blue Devils, take on Vermont, which a lot of people thought we'd get upset. Didn't happen. We handled business. But shout out James Madison for the big upset over Wisconsin. Listen, that game was wild. The JMU fans are crazy. Listen, I knew a few guys that went to James Madison that played ball with me in high school. I got some old teammates that are coaching there. Shout out to you guys as well. But I did not know James Madison had an alumni base the way that they did. They shut down Barclays. Let me just put it that way. It was unbearable for Wisconsin. If you watch the game, you notice how Wisconsin started. It was a wild environment in there. I mean, even during our game, we were getting a lot of booing from both JMU and Wisconsin fans. So shout out to James Madison on that upset they pulled off over Wisconsin. Shout out my Duke boys on handling business when they played James Madison and not falling for the upset. But big shout out to the ACC. Both Duke and NC State are in the Sweet 16. So it's not, we always talk about the Power Five. You know, in the words of Kendrick, it ain't no big three. It's just big me. Shout out to the ACC on 4 teams in the Sweet 16. But let's get down to business. So we got the number 1 seed Houston taking on the 4 seed Duke. And we got the number 2 seed Marquette taking on an unlikely number 11 seed NC State that pulled off the upset against Texas Tech, which I do believe Dub and I called coming into this weekend. So I'm going to start with the game that don't involve our team, the Marquette NC State matchup. Listen, I know that Kolick had been hurt for quite some time this season for Marquette. I watched him a couple games without him. I'm like, man, what's the hype? I know they're a good team in the Big East, but this team can't possibly win. And then I saw them with Kolick. And I just want to say the kid is stellar. As a guard, Kolick changes the dynamic of what Marquette is able to do on the floor. I mean, just totally dominant at that guard position. Colorado put up a great fight. Shout out to Colorado Buffaloes. They have a really good basketball team. And they should have won that game against Marquette, but I believe that, again, Marquette just had too many weapons on offense. When it comes down to this game, I think NC State will dominate in the paint early. We could even be looking at them going into halftime with a lead, but in the second half, Marquette is going to pull away. They got the more experienced team. They're physical. They can shoot from every level. I think Marquette is going to win this game, possibly by double digits. Um, Houston and Duke. Man, I'm so excited about my boys making the Sweet 16. I hate that it gotta be Houston. I hate it gotta be them. You know, I wish Texas A&M would have pulled off that upset. Shout out Texas A&M for the great game they played just last night. Miraculous comeback, game time 3-pointer at the buzzer to go into overtime. Houston had three of their core players were fouled out at this point. Even their guard Jamal Shed was fouled out, and they still found a way to win the game when it came down to it. So shout out Houston being resilient. Houston has a legendary coach behind them. When you think about this team as a whole, it's a legendary program. It is going to be tough for our guys. I got to say that we're playing a veteran team. I would say that Houston has better guard play, but we got the shooters. And I know in my bracket I picked Houston, but right now it's our channel. I'm picking the Duke Blue Devils to upset Houston. Shout out Jared McCain, JMU. We're going to call him JMU now that we knocked off JMU. Jared McCain is a bucket. I got to say that again. He stepped up big. I think Filipowski is going to do his thing and match up well against these guys. And they can't shoot with us. That's the bottom line. They can't shoot with us. I would love to see Houston, finally get a ring. I would love to see this happen for them, but it's not happening. Duke is going to win this basketball game and knock off Houston and head to the Elite Eight to face Marquette. Those are my picks, Dub. Who you got?
So I'm gonna just echo your sentiments about the Duke and Houston game. When you look at it on paper, Duke is just a better shooting team. So if Duke can spread the floor and hit shots early, I don't think this would be necessarily a close game. Houston scoring over the past 2 games, in my opinion, has not necessarily been unprecedented, but not it doesn't align with their output during the regular season. They were
Yep.
averaging about 73 to 74 points per game. So when you look at them last game scoring 100 points, and the game prior, I think it was like in the 90s or some 80s, 90s. I just don't foresee them scoring that many points against the Blue Devils as long as we can D up, strap them up. We don't want to slow them down that much. They're not really, in my opinion, they're not an up and down the court type of team because they're bigger guys and they can get real physical. So I don't think we want to get into a physicality battle with those guys. I think we want to spread the floor, hit shots, and that starts with our guy. I want to say freshman of the year, Jared McCain. He has to hit shots. He has to have another big game in order for the Blue Devils to win. So I'm gonna go ahead and give my Blue Devils, JT Blue Devils, the edge against the Houston Cougars.
So before you move on, I got a question for you.
Yep.
We know that Houston is probably one of the better defensive teams in the nation. How do you think, or who do you think is the X factor? Or how do you think we match up with them in a way that leads to success for us come Friday?
How do we match up with them?
What do you think should be the key going into this game for us to pull off this upset?
We got to hit shots. we got to spread the floor and hit shots. I mean, even looking at some of Houston's like shooting percentages from the three, they're not really a great 3-point shooting team. So we can hit them threes early and start really putting some points on the scoreboard. I think we'll be fine. I think we'll be fine. We just have to hit shots.
Yeah, and I would say just to add to that, I think Tyrese Proctor is the X factor. Proctor to me was a lottery pick after last season. He came back, which I'm grateful for, and I think Woo. In some ways, Proctor has regressed to some extent with Jared McCain being on the floor. I think his role has kind of become unclear in that regard. And so I think he's an X factor we got to see win. But I didn't mean to cut you off, Dub. Go ahead and
Oh, no,
give
you're
us your
good.
your pick for the
Your
other
point,
game.
but to your point, that has to go back to coaching. Your coach has to develop your role when you bring in players like McCain to be able to so y'all guys can have harmony out there on the floor. So you got to figure that out, John Shire. You have to figure that out. So I'm not going to fault Proctor for all of that. It's up to coaching to really figure out what is his role. So to your point, yeah, they got to figure that out. And then our second matchup here, NC State Marquette. NC State is a very physical team. I like to watch
Oh
them
yeah.
play because it reminds me of like their early 2000s basketball. You give
Mm-hmm.
it to DJ Barnes in the post. He giving them body. He doing drop step, spin,
That boy a
hook. Like,
beast.
bro, his post game bag is insane.
It is.
It's pretty nice. Like they compare him to Zach, not Zach. Yeah,
Yeah,
Zach,
Zach Randolph,
Zach
Zebo,
Randolph. Debo, Zebo or Debo?
Zebo.
Debo. A walk. I thought that was his son. I thought it
Yeah,
was his
he
son,
looked
bro.
like him.
He looked
He
just
looked like
like
him.
him. Move like him too. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So, bro, nice. But I think it comes to an end this weekend. I think it comes to an end. I just think Marquette is just a far superior team. NC State has definitely had a nice run. They definitely beat us in the ACC tournament. Shout out to NC State, but I think it ends this weekend.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And shout out their coach. He had a clause in his
He's
contract
on the chopping
that,
block.
well, he was on the chopping block, but he had a clause that said um, if they were to win an ACC title in a contract year, his contract automatically extended for 2 years. So here he is with a new contract extension in a year that could have been the last year for him as the coach. So big shout out to him. Big shout out to NC State.
He got another
And
$5 million.
and I mentioned shout out to the ACC, but shout out to North Carolina, bro. North Carolina basketball, we know it because we're from North Carolina. We've been saying it for years. Is on a whole different level. You got 3 North Carolina teams, and in the Carolinas as a whole, if we say so we shouted out the ACC, but let's shout out the Carolinas, North and South. We got 4 teams in the Sweet 16, so that says a lot about the Carolinas and what we're doing down there. Big shout out to them. As always, give us that CLS treatment, comment, like, subscribe.